Mr. Chairman, I'm Craig Eiland. I'm against the bill. I support the author, but I'm against the bill. I just got the committee substitute this morning. I didn't have a chance to go through it with Dr. Bonham, but I did go through it with his chief of staff. So I'd like to walk you through the bill and a couple of specific practical issues, as I see it as an attorney, that we need to fix or consider.
Thank you.
So if you look at the committee substitute on section 1, as I get it, this portion which talks, this is related to the notice requirement. And if we are going to make the notice requirement so important in what the consumer ultimately recovers, I think that we need to include expert fees in the cost that can be recovered. If you look at chapter 544 of the insurance code, there's a provision there which allows expert witness fees to be recovered. Because what will happen in litigation, the insurance company hires an engineer. Well, then the insured has to hire an engineer. The insurance company hires a roofing expert. Then the insured has to hire a roofing expert. So if you're going to make this such a strong provision and so critical at the end of the day of what the consumer can recover, you should include, I believe, the expert witness fees as cost that can be recovered.
So show us where that's...
that's in section 2A and 2B. It says...
Right, you just want to add that as something that you can recover.
And reasonable and necessary attorney's fees and the language from 544 is including expert witness fees as cost of court. Okay. So that's the reference I would give you there. The second place I would go is section 3 of the committee substitute. And 542A.003, and this is about the notice. Okay, there's a couple of questions I have that I think we should at least make clear of. On 2, it says the notice required under this section must provide 1, the statement of facts or omission giving rise to the claim, and 2, the specific amount alleged to be owed by the insurer on the claim for damages or loss of covered property. So my question is that a total dollar amount? So let's say if it's a commercial property and there could be 5 covered items. Okay, like the school district I represent, there's 22 different insured buildings. Do I give a total demand for the district, $100,000, or do I have to break it out per building for what the demand is on each building? The second one is if I get the amount within 80%, do I also have to, does that include the trade, or does it matter how it's broken out? And so those are things to consider, whether or not it's a total amount for the claim or total amount per insured item of the claim. On a residential property, it would be, you'd have the residence, you'd have the garage, and maybe any attachments, a fence or whatever. So that needs to be clarified. And then, can I ever change the amount? So let's say that I give a pre-suit notice, and I say, okay, we think it's a $100,000 loss. We go through and we start litigation, and I come up and go, oops, I see where you're talking about, so I want to change my demand to $80,000. Can I do that? And at what point in time is it too late to adjust my notice and my demand for settlement?
The way this bill written is, it's too late.
I know, but
that's why it's written, I think, purposely to try to get demands up front to be reasonable, so you do the before that. I'm just saying that's what I read this. I think as it's read is you don't get another chance.
Right, and then that leads me into what I believe should be required of insurance companies to provide to the insured or the attorney upon request is a copy of the claims file. Because if I have to write this demand letter, before I write this demand letter, knowing how important it's going to be, especially if I can never change it, then I need to know everything the insurance company had when they made their decision to close the claim or open it or reopen it or offer what they did. Because here's what happens whenever there's a big storm that happens, whether it's Ike, the Valley, San Antonio, the court will enter what they call a pre-suit order, which says, okay, plaintiff, you insured, you've got to give all this information, and insurance company, you've got to give all this information. And it includes the claim file, always. So if we're going to make this pre-suit notice so critical long-term, I should get that claim filed. Because right now, if I go ask them for it ahead of time, they'll say no. If I practice say, pretty please, I heard you're great people, they'll say no, you can't have it. And then I get it later, and now if I can't adjust my pre-suit demand notice that impacts what the insured gets as far as recoverable attorney's fees, I think that we need to address that and change it. If you go to G on 542A004. So this is still talking about the notice. Notice given under this chapter is admissible in evidence in a civil action or alternative dispute resolution proceeding relating to the claim for which notice is given. And I'm just, I think we should think about that. In a medical malpractice case, you're required to give a pre-suit, affidavit, but that is not admissible later in trial. And so, but if this is going to be admissible, you'll be crying by the time you finish reading my notice letter.
That's
what
I know. A jury's
going to see it.
See, put what you want to the notice letter.
Yeah, I don't know if everybody has thought that through, but that's okay. But I think it should be, because you're saying something that is has no necessary evidence is going to be admissible at trial. You understand what I'm saying? Yeah, anyway. I think that's should be a concern. Next, I think Mr. Gallagher talked about...
You may not want to get that changed.
Well, I understand. But we're going to be telling trial judges they have to admit evidence that is complete hearsay. Under Section 542A006, this is where we say that state courts are not going to be involved in these.
Yep.
That has been addressed, but one down on D, an insurer's election under subsection A must include a statement that the insurer will make the agent available for a deposition. I believe that if you're going to do this, you ought to make them also bring them to trial if requested to do so.
You think that provision needs to be looked at a little bit more about how to do that?
I think you're going to be making people drive right by multiple county courthouses on their way to a federal court in a town that's not their own, oftentimes. Because we don't have federal courts in every county, but we do have state courts in every county. And you're going to be making people drive to federal court. And so I think, anyway, give a deposition and come to trial. And then one concern I do have here, and I heard the testimony of a couple of the independent adjusters, is if you look in the first paragraph of this section, where if an insurance company agrees to assume the responsibility of the adjuster or the engineering company, which you know that's going to be in their contract anyway, it says that if an insurer makes an election under subsection A before a claimant files an action to which this chapter applies, no cause of action exists against the agent related to the claimant's claim, and if the claimant files an action against the agent, the court shall dismiss the action with prejudice. That is a complete elimination of personal responsibility on behalf of engineers and adjusters. I mean, think about it. They can be as negligent as possible. They can screw the insured as much as they want to and will never have to face a jury. And if they've done it 10 times, let's say a particular adjusting company working for Allstate has been sued and been found guilty or been found responsible in court for under-adjusting claims on purpose, we're going to hide that from everybody, from other insurance companies and from consumers. It'd be the same, Dr.
Well,
Bonner.
let me just ask you, if they're going to have found that, they're going to have a line on there where they're found that, so the public's going to know it.
I don't know, because it says they shall be dismissed.
Right, but you're going to have a percentage, or you've got a line down there. The jury's going to get to decide where they were. And I understand what you're saying, your point, but that doesn't mean that the insurance company won if it's so bad. May not accept it.
Well, I guarantee you that it's going to be in their contract with that adjusting company, that we will assume your responsibility. And if that happens, what kind of, if the adjuster has no risk, or the engineering company has no risk to be looked at later by a jury on their actions and be responsible for it, how independent do you think they're going to be when it comes to push and shove on getting the claim determined by the insurance company? If you give that much immunity, because that's what it is, and not even being held publicly responsible, I just think you should have
Of course, the
concern.
TDI could investigate them too.
Yeah, but it would be the same as the analogy I was going to use if a hospital agreed to indemnify a doctor and a nurse.
Right, but my consideration would be then the insurer is assuming the liability. If the agent is creating an exposure for the insurer, then at some point the insurer is going to say, look, you're causing a lot of problems. We don't want to do business with you any longer because you're getting us in trouble and driving our expenses.
Right, but how will I be able to find that out if I can't go look at jury results or appeals or whatever if their name is not included and they're not responsible? I mean, that's my concern. And then
let me just ask you then. So you heard what's been happening to a lot of adjusters. What would the solution then be?
Even if the insurance company assumes the adjuster's liability, they should still be put on the jury verdict form, one. And two, you have it, and the jury is not known under G of 05. In an action tried by a jury, an insurer's election made under this subsection may not be made known to the jury. Why not? I mean, because if the insurance company is going to say we accept responsibility for the engineer and the adjuster, why shouldn't the jury know that? I mean, I don't know if y'all.
So you're okay with the insurer assuming the liability? You just want more disclosure of an apportionment of who ultimately was responsible.
We can't stop the insurers from assuming responsibility for the adjusters and engineers, because right now, most of the time they do. I mean, I would think from contracts I've seen between them. But what I want is that...
Okay, let's have a further discussion on this maybe outside of today as far as the details on that.
And last comment is the very last section of the bill, which is D under 07. If a defendant in an action to which this chapter applies pleads and proves that the defendant was entitled to be given pre-suit notice and didn't get the notice, then the court may not award the claimant any attorney's fees incurred after the date the defendant files a pleading with the court. So that to me is like an anti-waiver provision. So the insurance company can hide behind the log, it looks like to me. They can hide behind the log saying either we didn't get pre-suit notice, we didn't get adequate pre-suit notice, go through the entire litigation, not ever raise that issue, and then the jury returns a favorable verdict. The insurance company files a pleading saying, hey, we didn't get proper notice 2 years ago when this all began, and therefore the insured cannot recover attorney's fees. Usually that would be called a waiver. Hey, you had the right to abate the case for 60 days to get your notice that you want. Therefore, you've waived that right. What this does, it says, insurance company, you don't ever have to waive that right. You can wait 2 years, wait till after the jury result, then raise it for the first time, it looks like to me. I don't think that's...
So you're saying you want them to have to do that once they file it,
time.
what's the specified time?
You know, I appreciate it. I will say I also appreciate you actually testifying on what's in the bill.
Yes.
That was very nice.
Thank you so much for your testimony. Let's...